Hello, Art 1 students. Just a reminder, when we are beginning on the coloring phase of your line and color projects, you will have access to a color wheel to help you figure out what color scheme you want to do. I know that we've already had quite a bit of discussion about what color scheme each of you has decided to use, but remember you have a wide variety of color schemes, including anything on the color wheel. The only color scheme that I recommend not doing is monochromatic, simply because, as you will see in just a couple of minutes, all of the shading steps are easier and work a little bit better if you have more than one color to work with. Now, that being said, if you really want to do monochromatic, you can. Just keep in mind that it may be a little more tedious because you won't be changing colors as much. Now, on this particular example, I have chosen to use a triad of blue-green, red-violet, and yellow-orange. So as you can see, a triad is a set of 3 colors that are evenly spaced. So there are 3 spaces in between each color of the triad that I'm using. So I'm just going to show you a couple of things getting started. This is where I have tested out a couple different types of blue-green, because remember, there's not any particular one blue-green or red-violet or yellow-orange that you have to use. The main thing to remember is that you are using your colored pencils to mix those colors. So for instance, on the blue-green section, I'll use these 2, yellow-orange and red-violet. Now, the reason that we are mixing the colors with the colored pencil instead of just using colored pencils that are those colors is because coming right off of the color wheel project and learning about the color wheel is going to be far more beneficial for you to actually create your colors using colored pencil. Now remember, each of these bands is going to essentially become its own miniature value scale. So in the corners of each band, it's going to be the darkest. And then as you get toward the center, it will get lighter and lighter and lighter, and then it will get darker again. And what that's going to do is create the illusion of depth, so that this lighter area seems like it's popping off the page, while the darker areas seem like they're receding and wrapping around that form. So again, triad of yellow-orange, red-violet, and blue-green for this particular example. I'm just going to start in this section so that you guys can see. I'm going to start with my yellow-orange, so I'm going to put the orange first. That's a very reddish orange. Let's see if I have a lighter orange. There we go. That should be a bit of a lighter orange now. And so I'm not pressing down super hard. I'm keeping my value consistent and smooth, but getting lighter and lighter as I get toward that center area. So then I'm just going to actually turn my page, because remember, you want to turn the page to whatever direction is most easy and natural for you. And I'm going to do the same thing coming from the other corner. I know that these bands don't technically have corners, but that's the best way to think of and talk about them. So again, you are really practicing your value, and you're really practicing the graduated value scale, essentially. So now I've got an orange base, so I'm going to go back over that with my yellow, pressing harder with the yellow because it is yellow-orange. So I want the yellow to be the stronger color. Still going to get lighter and lighter as I get more toward the center. Pressing down almost not at all. It's okay if you don't get completely back to white in the middle, especially on the bigger or the smaller bands. The bigger bands, you'll be more likely to get to white But if you look at some of the smaller bands on some of my examples and in future demos, you'll see that there's really not white on the smaller bands, it just gets lighter. And that's fine. The point is to keep it gradual and smooth, not just to have an abrupt white space in the middle. So that would be one band done in yellow-orange. Now the pattern, the way that you choose to arrange your colors is completely up to you. You could do yellow-orange, red-violet, blue-green, yellow-orange, red-violet, blue-green. You could do all yellow-orange, all blue-green, all red-violet. You could do 2 bands of each color. The exact pattern that you choose is completely up to you. The main thing that you want to focus on is making sure that you get those value transitions and that you overlap those colors so that you're creating the colors that you need. So right now I'm just going to put some violet down for my red-violet because once again I want the red to be a little stronger than the violet. So I'm going to turn my page again. Now, one thing to pay attention to is that sometimes, depending on the colors that you are making, you may go back and forth a little bit more. Like you may do a violet and then red and then violet again, or even do red and then violet and then red and then violet, so do each one twice. It really just depends on the type of red-violet that you want, or blue-green or yellow-green or whatever. So just be aware that you may do more than just 2 layers per color. It really just depends. So now I'm going back over that violet with my red, turning into red-violet. Still not pressing super hard because I do know the red is a strong color. And you can see that the violet is still coming through a little bit, which is turning that red, as I put it down, into more of a red-violet rather than just red. So same thing on the other side. Smooth transitions, gradually getting lighter and lighter, and then move toward the center. So again, since this is a bit of a larger band, I'm going to have some white in the middle, and that's fine, that's good. Now let's say that this corner I feel like needs a little more violet. I can just go right back over that with some more violet. Again, still make sure that I fade it back into the rest of the band so that I don't have any abrupt color or value changes. So now we've got one yellow-orange and we've got one red-violet. So now I'm going to do my blue-green. So again, I'm going to start with my green. I'm using the brighter blue or the lighter blue and the lighter green simply because I like the blue-green that makes better than the blue-green that the darker blue and green make. Either one is perfectly fine. And you could even use all 4. You could do the lighter one on some bands and the darker ones on others, and that's perfectly fine. So again, just getting my base color on. Darkest in the corners, getting lighter and lighter as I get toward the center. And I'm just going to go back over that with my blue. Same concept. Darkest in the corners, lighter and lighter and lighter until I get more toward the center. So I'm just going to put a little more blue in this corner. But then still make sure I smoothly transition. And now I'm just going to do the same thing on the other corner. Put a little more blue in the corner. Now at this point, if I wanted to even go into these corners with a darker blue to even further push that space back, I absolutely could. And what that's going to do is just make those corners a wee bit darker, but then I still want to make sure that I fade that into the rest of that band. So that's perfectly fine. So even looking at this page, looking at this area and this area, you can tell, especially on the blue-greens, they look different. But they are both a type of blue-green. So it's perfectly fine, once again, to have a little bit of variety in there. So now I'm just going to do another red-violet, because maybe on this band I'm going to decide to go back and forth a little more rather than just alternating. And that's part of the fun thing about this project is, again, you get to decide exactly how you use the colors and where, and they don't necessarily have to be the same from each section. Your color scheme has to remain the same, but the pattern that you use and the order in which you use those colors does not have to be the same throughout the entire thing. You could do some blobs here completely red-violet, some completely blue-green, some the way that I'm doing it. You could do some just alternating two of the colors. Completely up to you, as long as your shading technique is smooth, your color scheme is obvious and consistent, and you've got good value range. Those are the three main things that I'm looking for in this project. Because, again, those are what we have been talking about and working on in class, talking about the elements and the principles of art and design, leading into this first project that uses those elements of art. So once again, just remember, it's okay if not every single red-violet looks the same. So you can see these two red-violets are not exactly the same. That's okay, that's not the point. The point is to make sure that your color scheme overall remains consistent. So in the next video, I'm just going to show you guys a little bit more of the shading steps. I'm just going to be going through various parts and bands and patterns just so that you can see how those colors and layers continue to build up and create the form that we're looking for as we head towards finishing our line and color projects.